Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that two live nuclear bombs had just fallen from the sky near your hometown, not during a war, not because of an enemy attack, but because of an accident caused by your own country's military. Even more terrifying, one of those bombs came within a single safety switch of exploding. If it had detonated, an entire region of the United States could have been devastated, changing American history forever. This is the true story of the day America almost destroyed itself. The year was 1961. The Cold War had pushed the world to the edge of destruction. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a dangerous nuclear rivalry, each trying to prove it possessed greater military power. Every day, American strategic bombers flew around the clock, carrying nuclear weapons through the skies. These missions were designed for one terrifying purpose. If war suddenly broke out, the bombers could attack within minutes. To military planners, it was the ultimate insurance policy, but every flight carried an unimaginable risk. One mechanical failure, one human mistake. One unexpected emergency and a nuclear disaster could unfold without a single enemy firing a shot. No one imagined that nightmare would soon become reality. The mission begins. On the night of January 23, 1961, a massive B-52 Strat Fortress lifted into the darkness from an American air base. Inside were 8 crew members and 2 Mark 39 hydrogen bombs, each thousands of times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Their mission appeared routine: fly the assigned route, remain airborne, be prepared for immediate retaliation if nuclear war ever began. For hours, everything went according to plan. The engines roared steadily through the cold night sky as the aircraft crossed the eastern United States. But somewhere high above North Carolina, something went terribly wrong. A fuel leak began draining thousands of pounds of fuel. At first, the crew believed they could manage the situation. Within minutes, the problem became impossible to control. None of them realized they were only moments away from creating one of the most dangerous nuclear accidents in American history. The aircraft breaks apart. As the fuel continued pouring from the damaged wing, the B-52 became increasingly difficult to control. The crew immediately contacted Ground Command. They were ordered to descend and prepare for an emergency landing. But the bomber would never make it. The structural damage was getting worse by the second. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit. The aircraft began shaking violently. Pilots fought desperately to keep the massive bomber in the air, but the controls were becoming almost impossible to manage. Then, at more than 9,000 feet above North Carolina, the aircraft started to tear itself apart. In a matter of seconds, the giant bomber broke into pieces. The crew had only moments to react. "Bail out! Bail out!" The order echoed through the aircraft. One by one, crew members jumped into the freezing night sky. Some landed safely beneath their parachutes. Others were not as fortunate. As pieces of the aircraft crashed into farms and forests below, something even more terrifying happened. The 2 hydrogen bombs were no longer secured inside the aircraft. They were falling toward the ground. Each weighed thousands of pounds. Each carried unimaginable destructive power, and neither bomb was supposed to leave the aircraft until ordered during a nuclear war. As the first bomb plunged through the clouds, something unexpected occurred. Its parachute deployed automatically, exactly as it was designed to during a combat mission. To anyone watching from below, it looked almost peaceful. A massive object slowly drifting from the sky beneath a white parachute. But hidden inside was one of the most powerful weapons ever built. Investigators would later discover something truly chilling. As the bomb descended, nearly every one of its safety mechanisms activated exactly as if it had been intentionally dropped over an enemy target. The arming sequence had begun. One switch after another moved into the firing position. 6 separate safety devices were supposed to prevent an accidental nuclear explosion. One by one, 5 of them failed. Only a single low-voltage safety switch remained between North Carolina and one of the worst nuclear disasters in American history. Meanwhile, the second bomb followed a very different path. Without its parachute fully deploying, it slammed into a muddy tobacco field at tremendous speed. The impact buried much of the bomb deep beneath the earth. No one on the ground knew exactly where it had gone. Within minutes, military helicopters, police officers, and emergency crews rushed toward the crash site. They knew they weren't searching for ordinary wreckage. They were racing against time to secure two missing hydrogen bombs before an unimaginable catastrophe unfolded. The search for the missing bomb. As dawn broke over the quiet farmland of North Carolina, the area was transformed into a military emergency zone. Roads were sealed. Helicopters circled overhead. Armed soldiers spread across fields that just hours earlier had been completely peaceful. But this wasn't a rescue mission. It was a desperate race to find two missing hydrogen bombs before anyone else did. The first bomb was located surprisingly quickly. Its parachute had slowed the fall, leaving it relatively intact in a nearby field. Military engineers carefully examined the weapon. What they discovered sent shockwaves through the highest levels of the U.S. government. The bomb had gone through nearly its entire arming sequence. Out of its multiple safety mechanisms, only one simple low-voltage switch had prevented a full nuclear detonation. One tiny electrical component had just prevented one of the worst disasters in American history. Had that final switch failed, millions of lives could have been changed forever. But the nightmare wasn't over. The second bomb had disappeared. Search teams combed the muddy countryside for days. Using metal detectors, excavation equipment, and detailed maps of the crash site, they slowly uncovered pieces of the weapon buried deep beneath the ground. The bomb had shattered on impact. Some components were recovered almost immediately. Others were found several feet underground. But one critical section sank so deep into the soft earth that recovery crews could no longer reach it safely. After weeks of digging, officials made a difficult decision. They stopped the recovery operation. Part of the hydrogen bomb would remain buried beneath North Carolina forever. To prevent future excavation, the U.S. government purchased permanent rights to the land above the buried components. Even today, that section remains undisturbed. For years, most Americans never learned how close the country had come to catastrophe. The incident was kept largely out of public discussion during the height of the Cold War. Officials feared that revealing such a massive accident could damage public confidence in America's nuclear program. Behind closed doors, however, military leaders reached a troubling conclusion. The greatest nuclear threat wasn't always an enemy missile. Sometimes, it was a simple mechanical failure, a chain of bad luck, and a single switch standing between civilization and disaster. The legacy of the broken arrow. The incident near Goldsboro, North Carolina, became one of the most famous broken arrow events in U.S. military history, a term used for accidents involving nuclear weapons that do not involve the risk of nuclear war. In the years that followed, the U.S. military launched major reviews of its nuclear safety procedures. Bomb designs were improved, safety mechanisms became far more advanced, maintenance standards were tightened, and emergency protocols were rewritten to reduce the chances of another accident. But no amount of engineering could erase one terrifying fact. On that cold January morning in 1961, America came dangerously close to triggering a nuclear catastrophe, not because of an enemy attack, but because of a mechanical failure. For decades, many of the details remained classified. When government documents were eventually declassified, historians and nuclear experts were stunned by just how close the nation had come to disaster. The event raised an uncomfortable question that still echoes today. How many close calls have happened that the public never knew about? History often remembers the wars that were fought, but sometimes the moments that shape the future are the wars that almost happened. And in 1961, a single electrical switch may have saved countless lives. The sky over North Carolina looked peaceful that morning. Families went about their daily routines. Children walked to school. Farmers returned to their fields. Few of them realized that only hours earlier, history had come within seconds of changing forever. If you enjoyed uncovering hidden stories like this one, Subscribe and join us as we explore the forgotten events, secret missions, and untold moments that shaped American history. Because sometimes, the most dangerous chapters in history are the ones that almost happened.